for organizing this beautiful tasting.
Well, we're really excited about it. If you look just to the left of my head, you can't really see it, but in that frame back there is some pictures of a tasting I did probably 15 years ago with Angelo Gaia in Nashville, Tennessee. And I was pretty excited about that event, but I'm just as excited about this one.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I was watching the video of your presentation at the Wine Experience a few years ago of the 2010 Brick de Fiasque yesterday, and it was really a special thing. I used to be one of the sommeliers at that event for 5 or 6 years. I not that year. I'm too old to work that hard now, but your presentation was really heartwarming.
Grazie, thank you. It was a very special, unforgettable wine moment for me.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, that was such
a great opportunity and a lot of emotion because presenting the most important, the most significant wine of our Barolo, of our family, was really beautiful for me.
When was the last time you tasted the 2010 Brick de Fiasque?
Quite a long time ago, actually. I tasted last 2 nights ago the Barolo Riserva Rocche dell'Annunziata 2010. Oh. But the Barolo Brie de Fiasque 2010 was probably at least, I would say, 2 years ago. Oh. At least.
I would, yes. If I were you, I'd be drinking it every night.
But, you know, we are tasting more and more the younger wines, so right. We're not so spoiled, and we don't taste so many of the old vintages because we have several vintages in the cellar, the newer one, and different casks, different vineyards to try. So we are pretty busy checking and monitoring the younger Barolo.
Tell me, just for logistics, this morning here and afternoon there, should we taste the Dolcetto and then the Barbera and then the Barolo? Is that the right order in your mind?
Absolutely, yes. And would you remind me just the vintages that we are going to taste?
Of course, we have the 2018 Dolcetto and yes. The 2017 Barbera d'Alba Affinato in Carati.
Yes.
And the 2015 Barolo.
Absolutely.
And we have Mark, I'm not sure how to pronounce Mark's last name, Saw, and Adrian Peters.
Hello. Hello, nice to see you.
Joining us as kind of pretend guests. We will, on September 3rd, when I air this for our friends and clients, I'm sure we will have, 50 or 60 faces on this screen because of you and your wines.
Oh, thank you.
But this morning we're just, and do remember we're recording this, so don't say anything you don't want remembered. Okay. So tell me a little bit, and Mark and Annette and Adrian.
My name is popping up as my daughter because she used my Zoom.
I was thinking your name is not Adrian, I don't think, unless you had a name change last night.
Sorry about that, but it's what came up.
Well, anyway, Mark and Annette, I'm probably going to be confused all morning, but
okay, anyway, call me Adrian. It's fine.
Please chime in where you think I've dropped the ball on something that should be said or addressed. I know you are very, very great fans and very knowledgeable about these wines. Elisa, just tell us about your family and what it's like to be the next generation in this amazing family of winemakers.
Yes. Well, our history started in actually 1910 when the farmhouse where we live now was purchased by my great grandfather Lorenzo Scavino. In fact, before then we were living in Grinsane Cavour, and the farmhouse that we purchased in Castiglione, together with 27 acres of land. As I was saying, they were only in they were all in Castiglione Falletto. Of those 27 acres, only about 8.3 were planted with vines, while the rest was arable land, was woods, and so we were also cultivating fruit. So and at that time, basically we were vinifying 50% of the grapes that we were growing, and 50% was sold to the larger estate in our area. And we moved in that farmhouse only in 1921. So that is the year of foundation for our estate, who is named after, not after my great grandfather, but after my grandfather Paolo. And today it's my father Enrico, together with my sister Enrica and myself, who are continuing the tradition of our family estate, and we are growing the grape from our vineyards, our own vineyards. So we don't buy grape, but we vinify only from estate grape. And we own 30 hectares, all in the Barolo area, in 8 communes, 8 of the 11 communes of the Barolo region. And making a step backward, initially our family wines were bottled under the name of my great grandfather. So until 1949, the wines of my family were bottled as Lorenzo Scavino e Figli. And then when he passed, the two sons, Lorenzo and Alfonso, few years later, they divided, and my grandfather Paolo continued bottling the wines under the name, the Scavino name, while our cousin started the winery, which is very close, walk distance by us, which is Azzelia. And it was in 1951 when my father Enrico started to work side by side with his father Paolo, and at that time he was 11 years old. So he was really a young child, and its decision to remain and to work the land was definitely a very important and determinant decision for the future of our estate. You have to think.
Could I interrupt? How did your father, excuse me for interrupting, but I was hoping you'd expand on that a little bit. How did your father at 11 know that he wanted to be a winemaker? And then it came true. I mean, a lot of 11-year-old boys think they want to be fighter pilots or, Jedi masters or whatever they think they want to be, but they can't make that happen. How did I mean, they change as they grow older and discover girls and everything else that happens to boys. How did your father know at 11 that he wanted to be a winemaker, and then it came true? That's hard to imagine.
Well, I think the answer is the passion. Because if we go back in those years, to work in the vineyard, to work in the field was a very, very tough job, and it was not very profitable. In fact, many of the younger generation either they were studying and trying to move forward with their education, and then to look for more profitable jobs, or they were working in the industry, for example. So even if they maybe wanted to continue in the farm, but sometimes there was not to farm, but there was not the opportunity. My father was left free from my grandfather Paolo to choose if he wanted to study or if he wanted to work. So my father finished the 5th year of the elementary school, and then he had to take a decision to go forward with the studies or to work. And my father decided to remain and to help. Of course, when you are 11 years old, you by the history that it tells us, you're not doing. He was not doing the hard work, but it was already an important work for the family. And in fact, when my father started to work with his father, Paolo, his father Paolo said, "Okay, Enrico, so if you want to remain, that's great. And this year we will save 120,000 lire, which was the year salary that a man was taking, a man that was living with us, that was helping us. So it was the year salary for that man. And that meant that those 120,000 lire we could invest, we were available to invest, so to buy what was needed for the estate, and it meant the growth of our estate.
Wow.
And so I think also a part of this decision was influenced by the fact that at that point the young kids were already asked to help even when they were very young. Also, my sister Enrica and myself, so we started to do little job, but since we were very young, and sometimes we were complaining, we didn't maybe we didn't understand the importance. But the sooner you start to get into a reality, the sooner that reality becomes part of you, and you become passionate, you grow with it, and so it becomes part of you. And so I think that my father took the decision partially for the experience he was doing with his father, and partially because he was really enjoying what he was doing.
You know, winemaking to the casual observer seems like such a romantic thing, but a lot of it is really hard work. Physical labor. And you know, your father at 11 must have discovered that there's some romance to it, and you get to enjoy, if you make great wine, you get to enjoy some great wine in your life. But it also involves, you know, moving casks around and doing green harvest, and some of it's pretty tough physical labor, and he wasn't scared off by that.
Yes. Well, my generation, my sister and my generation were very lucky because we see really the end of the period of the hard period and the beginning of a new era, where this region was more and more discovered and appreciated. You know, we can just move 20 kilometers far from Barolo, and there are families who have the same history of ours, that have the same passion, culture, but they are not rewarded as we are. So in Barolo, we are very lucky. We are lucky because we have the Nebbiolo, we have these hills, we have this territory, but also we are very lucky because our passion is possible also because people support this passion. And I think this region is has been populated and is populated by wise people, by people that love the territory, that in the years have always reinvested in the territory. They believed very early in this territory, and they work hard to always do better year after year. And I think also another thing that you know, when myself and my sister didn't live in first person the big hard work, the big physical sacrifice as well. But when you hear stories from people who lived those time, then you absorb their feelings, and that makes you appreciate and makes inspire you to carry on the dream of the people that came before you, because then it becomes a great pride and sense of happiness to be able to continue something that people before us have started, and with great love. And there is a difference between doing sacrifice and hating what you do, and doing sacrifice but with love and loving what you do. So that is, I think, one of the best teaching that I received, and that for me to do my best. And I think any time has its own challenge, you know, different, but has its own challenge. But you know, the memory of our roots, of our history, where we come from, is always something that is motivation for continuing and doing well, to honor what our grandparents, great-grandparents have done before us, and parents, of course.
We recently had a tasting like this with Gian Lorenzo Neri from Casanova di Neri in Montalcino, and I asked him if his sons, and I'll get to this question with you, but I asked him if either of his sons seemed to have any interest in being a winemaker after him, and he said that he could early on could tell which of his sons was going to probably be involved in the winery, because one of them was always in the way and one of them was always contributing. So I think your father probably was like the son who was always contributing in helping his father, your grandfather.
Absolutely, yes. And in fact, you know, when I was a baby, really 5, 6, 7, when I started to realize, you know, what was happening around me. In the past, a winery people thought that there was a future for an estate only if there were sons. If there were daughters, that meant the end of the estate. And I remember that for me, it was already, and that's by luck, I think by luck, and also probably because my father shared with us what he was doing, and so we were also part of his work, daily work. But really, I was, for me, I wanted to continue. And I was so upset, and I was like, so there is Enrica and myself, so that means that everything has to end. And I wanted to, I was determined. When I finished my middle school, the teachers asked me, so Elisa, what are you doing for next? What's your choice? And when I say that I wanted to study viticulture and enology, they were shocked, and they tried to discourage me. They said, you know, it's you can do later the university, you can study agronomy later, but that's really a male world, and it's maybe it's better if you study science, if you go to the gymnasium and study maths, and then you prepare yourself, and then you, in a second time after, then you can decide if you really want to work in the vineyards and do the wine. I remember I went to visit the wine school in Alba with my parents, and at that time it was kind of the end of an era where there was really a little bit of sexism. So there were almost no girls studying in the wine school. And I remember I entered there. The director of the school brought us in a class where there were the elder students, and I remember that they stared at me like, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" And I remember that I was like, "I'm coming to this school," and then I enjoyed it so much. But I think also that in the past, this way of thinking that only son could continue rather than the daughter was because really many of the work were manual, so were very tough. In fact, my grandmother, my mom, my aunt, they never did the tougher work. The tougher work were done by the men. The other work, which were important, equally important, were done by the women of the house. So probably for that reason, they thought that it was a man work. But actually today there are a lot of daughters continuing, and it's about passion, I think.
You know, if you eliminated female winemakers from the world, it would be a much poorer place than it is. I mean, seriously, you wouldn't have Philippine de Rothschild at Mouton, and you wouldn't have Anne-Claude Laflave at Domaine Laflave, or the sisters at Domaine Weinbach, or Helen Turley at Marcassin, and all the incredible wines she's made in her career, and Heidi Barrett. I mean, this is just a few. There's Gaia and her brother taking over for their father, and it's, you know, we're blessed. The world is a richer place because of women like you who are continuing in their fathers, continuing the legacy of their fathers and grandfathers. Thank you. So you mentioned about, well, we need to taste the Dolcetto because we're 20 minutes into this and people are watching saying, I thought this was supposed to be a wine tasting. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the 2018 Dolcetto.
Absolutely. So we are starting the tasting with the Dolcetto, and Dolcetto is a Tolton grape first from Piedmont, and is actually cultivated all over in Piedmont, and there are over 7 different appellations of Dolcetto. So different expression of Dolcetto depending on where they are grown in Piedmont. Dolcetto has been for many, many years the most popular grape, also in the Barolo area. So people were drinking mostly Dolcetto. Today, Dolcetto is living a little bit of a sadder history because a lot of the vineyards were once upon a time were cultivated with the Dolcetto. Today they are replanted with Nebbiolo. So there are really fewer and fewer vineyards in the Barolo region where we are located with our estate that are still planted with this grape. We don't make a big production of Dolcetto. We have only one vineyard, and it's in Bricombrogio vineyard, vineyard in Roddi village. And I have a map behind me. I don't know if you can see it from there, but
beautiful.
Yes. So this is the Barolo, the Barolo region, which is made up of 11 communes, and it looks like a big area, but actually is only 20 minutes from the south Monforte up to Verduno. And our Dolcetto comes from here, from Bricombrogio vineyard, which is the only NGA in Roddi where it's possible to grow Nebbiolo for Barolo. And this is a vineyard that we have purchased in 2002, but that was planted in 1950. And actually, these Dolcetto vines are planted in a part of the vineyard where we could grow Nebbiolo for Barolo. We didn't take off those vines. We kept those old vines alive, and because even for a sample wine as Dolcetto, it's important to have old vines. Old vines produce less quantity already naturally. So they have a more balanced production, they have deeper roots. So give the wines that are more complex, more intense, more deep, more elegant. The Dolcetto is a wine for me that I'm very, very attached. For me, it really recalls the kitchen, the home, the family. It's an everyday wine with unifying stainless steel to maintain the freshness, the elegance of the grape, the lightness, the brightness. It's a grape that is has a quite a mild acidity, has a little bit of tannin that though give a beautiful freshness and cleans your palate, and has this nose that is very floral, and has also in the same time beautiful minerality. So I think it's actually among the red wines, I think that we grow, that we produce, one of the nicest to have also in the summer actually, because if you have it served at the fresh temperature, also with it goes wonderfully with several different food, even with the fish. I remember a beautiful dinner that I did in Tokyo, and they prepared orata, which I don't know, I tell you the proper word of orata in English. Orata is sea bream.
Yeah, I just know it as orata. I've only ever eaten it in Italy, and they call it orata there, so I don't. But.
Oh, okay, orata, sea bream. Okay, and they served it with Dolcetto, and it was amazing. So that was a great experience for me to open also my understanding of the grapes, because usually we have it with the appetizer, mostly with meat or with some cheese, some charcuterie. But I think that is a beautiful wine to enjoy with really also lighter food that we consume mostly in the summer.
Well, you know, this time of year, it's kind of nice to have a red wine that is that benefits from a little bit of chill. That's a little cooler than normal for red wine. So what we think red wine, and you know, sitting out on the patio here where it's 90 degrees in the afternoon lately, a cooler than normal red wine like this is pretty enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is it, do you think, to me, this wine strikes me as very elegant for Dolcetto. This specific Dolcetto, it seems very kind of refined and elegant for Dolcetto. Do you agree with that?
I do, and and we like very much that elegance, the brightness, that also the cleanness. Dolcetto as Barbera are not so easy grape to vilify, in the sense that tend to go a lot in reduction, and that reduction sometimes covers the fruit, the floral components of the grape, closing the wine or adding some finicky aromatics. So what we do is to try to, well, first I think it's the characteristic of a wine is absolutely connected to the vineyard, because, and in fact, this vineyard of Bricombrogio, which belongs actually from the Tortonian side of the Barolo region. So it's a vineyard where the soil is more, is very calcareous, is white marl, so it's mostly silt, sand, and then a little and limestone. So partially the soil that gives great freshness and softer elements. Part is also the fact that this vineyard is also the exposure. So this vineyard is a southwest exposed. Now maybe here is very difficult to see, but I try to tell you. So this hill, basically in front of this hill, there is a very flat part, a flat land. The valley in front of Bricombrogio is quite wide and open. So despite the fact that this vineyard is very well exposed to the sun, so it takes the sun from basically from the morning until the evening. Over the night, there is this beautiful temperature exchange. There is this temperature drop because the heat that is accumulating over the day is released overnight. And so that helps a lot to have freshness in the nose, nice acidity, pretty bright, and wine with good tension. But in the same time also with good softness, due to also to the soil that is mostly limestone. We do very delicate maceration. We macerate for about 4-5 days to not have heavy extraction. So we like to have light extraction on this grape to really enlighten the aromatics. And then we rack several times the wine, so to remove the sediments, so to keep it clean, so to avoid over reduction. And then we do malolactic stainless steel, and it's not aged in oak, so it's only stainless steel. And then in the spring we put in the bottle. And so I think it's important for us to have a Dolcetto that has, and these everyday wines, they have to be approachable, they have to be enjoyable, and they have to invite you to be drinks. So we don't want to have too big wines or too rich wines.
You mentioned that there's a difference between working hard at something you don't enjoy and working hard at something that you love, and that's two very different professions. Do you think that feeling that you and your sister have and your father have about what you do in the vineyards and in the cellar comes through in the wines?
I think so. I think wines reflect the people who make the wine, and that in fact is also part of the value of our region, the beauty of our region, is that the winery, the owner are the people that work in the vineyards, that make the wine, that take decision, right or wrong, but they take their own decision. They don't, there are not, I don't think there are so many consultants that make wine here versus other region where, you know, where they have maybe different history, different path, and so different way to approach winemaking and viticulture. And it's not enough to have the best vineyard, to have the best vintage, to have the best soil, the best climate. It's important that the man work. It's crucial, and that is what gives soul to the wine, because you can drink a perfect wine made perfectly, but that doesn't leave an emotion. While if you, I think Piedmont wines are wines for sure that gives emotion, and it's beautiful to taste through the different producer, the different area. So to taste a Nebbiolo made in Barolo, to taste a Nebbiolo made in Barbaresco or in Roero, or to taste a Gattinara, or to move in Valtellina. So, but where you taste, where the producer are the people that make the wine. I think that's fundamental, is absolutely important.
How do you and your sister divide responsibilities in the winery?
So my sister Enrica started before me to work with my father, and she studied languages. So she started already while she was studying, so very early in her life, to help my father with a visit, translating when he had to do a tasting, and then a little bit later he started to travel with him, and then to travel on her own. So she really developed the market, our network of distributors, importers, with whom we work today. And my father made a trip in the early 80s. I think it was 1984. And when he came back, the first thing that he did was to look for the really first thing he did on a Monday or a Tuesday when he arrived was to look for a teacher of English for my sister. He said to her, Enrica, you have to study English, because beside the wine, but it's such a shame to not be able to communicate with people, to not be independent, to not be able to ask for a glass of water, to do your own things when you are traveling. And traveling and meeting people is an amazing opportunity to grow, to enjoy, to know the different culture. And so it's important for you. So she started very early to study languages, and she pursued these studies over time. While I studied viticulture and enology, so I I finished my studies in 2005, and that was my first official harvest, full time in the winery with my father and my sister. So I follow a little bit more. So I work closely with the team in the cellar and the team in the vineyards, and usually during the first month of the year, I visit also some market when here is a little bit more quiet and there is not as much to do. So before the vineyards start to vegetate and in fact from the late spring until the end of the year, I'm full-time home, and because I of course want to follow all the steps.
So why was it you on the dais at the wine experience and not your sister? Why did you represent the winery?
Because my sister became a mom in 2011, so it was too early to leave a young baby at home, and so I was, of course, very happy to be there on our behalf and to represent the estate in that occasion. But Enrica did many more wine experience than me.
What? How old were you when you were up there? I know it's not nice to ask a lady her name. Her age.
No. I was trying to remember which was 2014,
maybe.
I think it was 2014. So I was born in 1981. So I was either 33 or 34.
Was it a little bit intimidating sitting next to Giacomo Conterna at a Barolo tasting? Wasn't he just to your left?
Actually, it was reassuring because I was in a company of all other producers of Barolo, so I felt kind of at home. Yes. So
well, I mean, he's kind of
very enjoyable.
I would be intimidated sitting next to him talking about anything.
No.
Is your father still active in the winery?
Absolutely. My father name is Enrico, and he was born in 1941, so he's 79 years old, and he's 200% involved in the estate. So he's following all the work in the vineyards. So his role is really to educate all of us and to guide us and to transmit his knowledge. So he's a part of each decision that are taken in our family. So of course.
One more question before we move on to the Barbera. You mentioned the tension in the Dolcetto. What did you mean by that?
The tension, I mean the cleanness, I think is due to the combination of the acidity and the tannin that gives a great freshness and great definition in your palate. Barbera, for example, if we compare it, actually has higher acidity compared with Dolcetto, but is softer because Barbera has less tannins than Dolcetto, so it's more voluptuous, it's a little bit richer, it's more velvety. So for me, Dolcetto is more tension because there's this combination of acidity and tannin that gives this freshness and that gives definition and nerve to the wine. While Barbera has a little bit more softer elements. That said, of course, Nebbiolo has even more tannins than Dolcetto. So Dolcetto is still quite a delicate wine, so it's not as powerful as a Barolo.
Well, let's taste the 2017 Barbera d'Alba Affinato in
yes.
Caracci.
So I think it's very interesting also to taste the Barbera Caracci today, because the Barbera Caracci comes from the same vineyard where the Dolcetto comes from. So the same territory, also extremely old vines of Barbera. And the Barbera Caracci, it's a Barbera that we make since the 80s. And it has always been a selection of the oldest wine of our estate that were vinified in stainless steel, but then aged for 1 year in the cask, in the larger cask. So you have to think that the Barbera Caracci actually also is not made every year. So we make it in the best vintages, also because it comes from that specific vineyard. So either we get great results or we don't make Barbera Caracci. I wanted to say something else, but now I forgot. So it comes only from the vineyard. And as I wanted to say that we make 4,000 bottles of Barbera Caracci. So 4,000 bottles is 300 cases. Yes, so is really a Barbera that the show beside the grape, but really that vineyard. The Barbera in the past didn't have a great reputation. When my father was younger, Barbera was people, as I was saying, people were drinking Dolcetto. Because Barbera, if it's not cultivated in the right exposure, if the quantity, the yield are not moderated, are not limited, then it tends to produce wine that are quite acidic. They are quite not harmonious wine, not as pleasant wines. But if you cultivate the Barbera in the great Nebbiolo vineyards, then you can have a wine that can first age extremely well. In fact, the Barbera Caracci we keep every year for us. A quantity we keep at least, we try to keep 120 bottles minimum to age and to open in the years to come. But also it's a wine that can be enjoyed young. So definitely we age it a little bit, because older wines compared with the younger vines, because we also have another vineyard that is where we cultivate Barbera, but it's a completely different vineyard. It's more sandy, and the vines in that other vineyard are younger. So the Barbera from Briccombroggio need, in our understanding, a little bit more of time for getting together, for harmonize, due to the complexity, the richness that is due to the vines to the age of the vines, but also to the area where it is grown. And I should say another thing about Barbera, that it's extremely needy, as I was starting to say before, in terms of condition where it has to be grown, because Barbera doesn't enjoy soils that are too humid, too fresh, because it's a very vigorous varietal. So if you have too much of humidity, it tends to grow the grape, and you lose the concentration in the wine. Likes the sun, and actually needs the sun, because needs the sun to mature the grape, and it's a grape that I think gives lovely wines. I enjoy a lot the Barbera over the fall, when the first fresh, cool climate start to appear. Then the Barbera, I think, is very warming and a nice treat.
I asked Giorgio Rivetti once, when do you drink Moscato, when do you drink Barbera, and when do you drink Barbaresco? And he said, well, I drink Moscato in the morning, I drink Barbera at lunch, I drink Barbaresco at dinner, and I have a glass of Moscato before I go to sleep at night.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was a great description. Annette has asked a few questions that I've just realized that I wasn't ignoring you, Annette. I just didn't see the chat pop up. The 120,000 lira that you was saved by your father going to work at 11, is that about 14,000 US dollars? Or how many euros is it? Then we can do it.
That would be $61.
Really? Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
because is divided, the lira to become euro is divided 1936. So €1 was originally, yes, 1936 Virgo 27. So it would be 120.000 lire, would be...
It'd be about 10 euros, so about $14.
Would be $61. That was the $62, approximately, if euro and dollar are the same. $62 were the salary of a man of a year.
Wow.
Imagine.
But that was when was that? That was in
1951.
1951, right after the war.
1951.
Yeah, right after the war,
Yeah.
things were tough, right?
Yes.
Adrian/Annette says, I remember when the trade introduced you and Enrica as the feisty sisters who picked up the reins at one of Barolo's most important estates. Do you consider you and your sister feisty?
Feisty, what does it mean?
Tough, brash. Well, Annette, would you like to explain what you mean by tough? Not easily defeated, maybe humorous.
Another word would be scrappy. You know, somebody who's willing to fight.
Okay. So the question is if we fight.
No, just Elisa. I remember Mark DeGrazia introducing you to the trade, and it was unusual to have two sisters picking up the ball at an important Barolo estate. It was extremely memorable for me as a woman in the industry to see two young women taking on such an important role.
Oh, thank you so much.
Important memory for me.
It's safe to say that Annette is a staunch feminist and proud of you for your success. Is that fair to say, Annette? So I Googled.
Absolutely.
I Googled
Lisa.
I Googled feisty, and what came up was bubbly, courageous, excitable, fiery, gritty, gutsy, high-strung, lively, scrappy, as you said, and spunky.
That's a compliment.
Yeah,
Great compliment. Thank you.
Well, certainly
Grazie.
courageous. Certainly courageous.
Grazie.
My gosh, taking the reins of such a prestigious winery had to be. Well, if you were willing to get up on that dais with Giacomo Conterno, you're courageous at a young age. So, and then Annette also said Dolcetto doesn't usually get such prized real estate as this one does.
It's correct.
Why it's so good.
Exactly. The price of the land where Dolcetto is grown is definitely much. The price is much less than the land for Nebbiolo for Barolo. Absolutely, there is a big difference.
Are you, with your father at 79, still involved enormously, as you say, and you, being now the winemaker officially, are there things that you would like to do that he wouldn't approve of, so you're not doing?
No, the boss is my father. The boss, my father is the winemaker. I'm the assistant winemaker.
Okay.
So it's no, we usually when we decide, when we have idea, my father is very, very open, and he likes very much to challenge himself. So he likes to make to test every year, different way to work the vineyard, and then we make my micro vinification. Then we taste with our team the results of those tests of aging the wines, maturation, temperatures, many different things. So anything that we would like to do is willing to try, and that is very nice. And he's always saying to my sister, myself, there are no books that can really tell you. You have to try yourself. You have to. There is no better opportunity for people that own a land that can cultivate the fruit, that can vinify in first person. So there is not better opportunity than that to learn, to make a test, to try different things, and to learn from your experience. So we always decide together as a family, every choice that we take.
I want to correct something I said earlier, because somebody watching this is going to do it for me if I don't. It was not John Lorenzo Neri who talked about his two sons' different kind of work ethic in the winery. John Lorenzo's 27 years old, I think. It doesn't really make sense. It was Christian Moreau talking about his son Fabien, the great Chablis winemaker, who was talking about his son Fabien, who was so helpful and brilliant in the cellar. That makes a little bit more sense, because Fabien is now, like you, the winemaker of Christian Moreau. So I know somebody watching this is going to call me to task for that mistake if I don't point it out. So this Barbera is really brilliant wine. I think it really is just brilliant to me.
Grazie.
Not that the Dolcetto wasn't, but the Barbera is just kind of textbook glorious Barbera d'Alba. Why do you think these three grapes, Dolcetto, Barbera, and Nebbiolo, that we're tasting today, are so enormously successful in Piedmont, but they're really not successful anywhere else in the world? I mean, there's some Barbera in Oregon and California. There's Dolcetto in California, I guess. I mean, but Nebbiolo, I mean, I have never tasted a Nebbiolo, Barbera, or Dolcetto from anywhere other than Piedmont that I thought was worth drinking. Why is that?
Well, more than any other grape, I think Nebbiolo is extremely needy and picky grape. So, but probably in another measure also Dolcetto and Barbera. So those grapes need a really special microclimate, territory, soil to develop a specific aromatic and texture characteristic that makes those grapes recognizable. That's our fortune, because it means that other than the other region where traditionally, historically, Nebbiolo was cultivated, not many. You can grow Nebbiolo everywhere, but it doesn't give the same result. And if you think about the Barolo region, it's about 2,000 hectares. So it's a very, very, very small region, and that's it. Then you have here you have 11 communes. Then you have Barbaresco. There are 4 communes. Then there is the Roero, there is the Gattinara, the Gemme, Lessona, the Valtellina. So there are other areas in Italy where Nebbiolo is grown. There is, I think, Italy is kind of a bridge between Middle East and Europe, and there are so different conditions where the grape, so each grape could find the perfect position for itself in the different region of Italy. We have over 2,000 cultivars of grape. Italy is ultimately, definitely the state in the world with the highest number of autochthon grape, 2,000 varietals. And this because I think you have different conditions in Italy that allow for each grape to find its best situation and condition. You have the Alps, you have lakes, you have the sea. You go from north, east, west, south. I mean, completely different condition that allows for each grape to really express itself at best. So it's difficult to find the condition that we have in Italy in other places. But this is something that is really about the territory.
It's the perfect explanation of the concept of terroir. Grapes grown on the south side of Mount Etna are totally, wines made from grapes grown on the south side of Mount Etna are totally different from wines made from grapes grown on the north side of Mount Etna. Totally different wines. And, it's profound. The differences are profound. And that I think that question about how many grapes are cultivated commercially in Italy is a really interesting one, because I have heard very knowledgeable people say that there are, now you say 2,000 grapes. I've heard people that are very credible say there's 4,000 grapes. And I've heard people that are very credible say there's 6,000 grapes cultivated in Italy. So who knows how many, what the truth is. I mean, a very well-known master sommelier once told me that there were 6,000
Really?
grapes grown in Italy.
Okay.
Now, he may be talking about clones of the same grapes and different names for the same grapes. I don't know. But
I think that makes it also the difficulties in knowing all of these grapes in the world, because imagine in the Barolo area, for example, in Novello there is a grape that is autochthon from Novello, so historically cultivated only Novello, which is called Nascetta, which gives a white wine. It's produced only in Novello, and I think most of the Nascetta is consumed here. So it doesn't even make it to the different countries in the world. Pela Verga in Verduno, the same. We don't grow Pela Verga in Castiglione Falletto or in Barolo, in La Morra, and we are literally 3 minutes, 5 minutes from Verduno. So imagine how many diverse varietals there are that don't make it through the different countries. So you have to travel to Italy to come also to consume these grapes in Italy, to enjoy those grapes with our food, and so that is a good motivation also, I think.
Well, I always say nobody knows anything about Italian wines because nobody can list 10% of the grapes from memory. Even if there's only 2,000, nobody can list 200 grape varieties from memory. I don't, well, maybe some people can, but I certainly can't. I think it's time to taste the Barolo, which is the whole reason all of us are here, I guess.
Absolutely. So I would say that the Barolo is the most important wine of our estate, because it really is and represents the history, and also represents the evolution of our estate, of our family estate in the time. Originally, our Barolo had Nebbiolo grape only from Castiglione Falletto village. Originally, it was the only Barolo we made, so there was no Barolo Fiasco, there was not Barolo Ravera or Barolo Mobiliero. We only made Barolo, and it came from 3 vineyards, Vignolo, Altenasso, and Fiasco, from Castiglione Falletto. Today, the Barolo has the contribute of 8 different vineyards from 3 different communes, from Castiglione Falletto, from Barolo, and from Serralunga d'Alba. The first single vineyard Barolo that we made was in 1978, and it was the Barolo Brick del Fiasco. So it was the first, 1978 was the first year when my father, Enrico, decided to vinify separately the Nebbiolo grape from the Fiasco vineyard and to make Brick del Fiasco. But before the 60s, there were no single vineyards Barolo. The idea was that to make the best Barolo, you had to blend the Nebbiolo from the different vineyards, because, as I was saying before, the region of Barolo is extremely small, but extremely diversified for the characteristic for the different microclimate and the different soil that you can have. So you have different Barolo depending on where the Nebbiolo comes from. So the idea of blending is to bring together the best expression of the vintage together, to create harmony, to create complexity. And in the Barolo, you have the vineyards that are into the Barolo are Vignolo, Rocche Moriondino, and Pernanno from Castiglione Falletto. We have Vignane, Perlo, and Albarella from Barolo, and then we have San Bernardo from Serralunga. And from the 2016 vintage, there will be also Cerretta into the Barolo. So all of these vineyards are picked separately, vinified separately. So we ferment each vineyard separately, and some of these vineyards, they are even split in multiple parcels when we vinify to maintain the part of maybe the hill that we consider diverse and special, particular, for any characteristic like age of the vines or soil or exposure or elevation on the hill. And so we vinify separately, we age them separately, each parcel. And over the years of aging of the wines, so my father, my sister, myself, and all of our team working with us, we blind taste, and we follow the evolution of this parcel. And we make the blend, we choose then the best parcel that we are going to blend to create this Barolo. And what doesn't perform, we sell in bulk to larger wineries. So it's the selection of the best really grape of our estate, and we don't try the blend before making. So we know the blend once we make it. We know we taste the single parcel, and we trust that the beauty of each parcel together can bring complexity and create the best wine possible for the vintage, for starting from the parcel that we select. So we make the blend, and we age it then for another year, and then we bottle in the summer, and then we sell it about 9 months later. So in total it's 3 years of aging.
2015 is a very great vintage for Barolo, and now again 2016 is which will come in October, Annette tells me. Yes. Your wines, we're excited to have them when they come. I have one very good customer who's already told me he wants 2 cases of 2016 Brick de Fiasque, whatever it costs. But 2015 is a very successful vintage, correct?
Absolutely. 15 and 16 are 2 amazing vintages, diverse, and if we want to make it easy, they made me think of 2010 and 2011 if we want to make a comparison. So 2015 a little bit more sweeter and round, and absolutely generous in the nose, so perfumed. We had an impeccable season in 2015. What was different between 15 and 16 is that in 16, as a generalizing, is that in 16 we had a dry end of the summer. So before the harvest, nothing, no rain completely. So you get this concentration and this power in the wine. While in 2015 we had a little bit of rain in early September, which though I think, then I don't know for sure because we don't have the magic ball, so we don't know otherwise. But I think it was a good thing because the summer of 2015 was a touch warmer than the 2016, and so that rain helped to soften the tannins. Otherwise, would have been a little bit too dry, maybe, and we would have had maybe wine less graceful. While with that little rain, we had a little bit softer wine, a little bit more juicy. I think also more elegant wine. So it's a vintage that I have enjoyed, and I'm enjoying very, very, very much. And then there will be, of course, the 2016, which are very engaging, very intense, very demanding, great energy.
So I know Brick de Fiasque is an important thing, an important wine to you and your family? Because I heard that the emotion in your voice when you were talking about it at the wine experience.
I don't know if you can see.
Wow.
This is the first label.
Wow.
It's on my desk. 1981 is my year.
Oh, wow. So explain, well, I'm so glad I asked that question. So explain the importance of Brick del Fiasco to you and your family and your father.
Yes, so Brick del Fiasco in the dialect means hill of fiasco. The proper name of this vineyard, so the official name of this vineyard is Fiasco. But my grandfather, and I'm pretty sure my great-grandfather as well, they when they were referring to this vineyard, they were saying Brick del Fiasco. So we decided to keep this name because it recalls, of course, beautiful memories for my family. This is a vineyard in Castiglione Falletto. It's an important vineyard because besides its intrinsic qualities that we recognize in this vineyard, this is a vineyard that is in our family since the beginning, so since 1921. So yes, in this vineyard, 4 generations of my family have worked. It's like the beginning for us in all meanings, and it's also important because this is the vineyard that my father selected to be the best vineyard of our estate, and he decided to vinify this vineyard separately in 1978. As I was saying before the 60s, there were not many single vineyards, and still in the late 70s, you probably could count on 3 and maybe the number of single vineyard Barolo. And Brick del Fiasco was among the first single vineyard Barolo to be made. And that was a great epiphany for my father when he vinified this vineyard, because he understood the importance to show the diversity, the richness, the complexity of our region through making single vineyard Barolo. We believe in blend, so and obviously the Barolo Caro Brick, the Barolo Riserva Novantesimo are all made as a blend of Nebbiolo, of course, but from different vineyards. But of course, we own 20 vineyards in 8 communes. So we have really some of the most beautiful vineyards in the region, and we are able to show the diversity of this cruise. So that's a great opportunity for us, and this is something that my father pursued after vinifying Brick del Fiasco. And so this is a vineyard when I go that, of course, will be always forever the vineyard that for me is the most important. Beside the characteristic of the wine or so, but I'm obviously very attached to this vineyard, and it's a beautiful amphitheater. It's a very small MGA, it's only 8 hectares, and it's all planted with Nebbiolo, and there is amazing oak tree in top of the hill that you cannot embrace. It's huge, and it's very, very old. It's over 100 years old. Anytime you go there, it's like the time never moves. It's always the same. And I remember when I was playing there when I was younger. So it's a special vineyard for me. And Castiglione Falletto is a central commune in the Barolo region. actually, and it's difficult to see it through a video and not being there, but I don't know if I can make it more close and you can see better.
That's real good.
So this is Castiglione Falletto. What is interesting about the Castiglione Falletto and is that you have a coast of that runs and where Castiglione Falletto ends Monforte, this orange MGA is Bustia, starts. Okay, so you have this coast where you have probably the most historical crew of Castiglione Falletto, which is Rocche di Castiglione, that is facing Perno and Castelletto, and on the other side there is Serralunga. But perpendicular to the coast of Castiglione Falletto, there are sets of hills that are perpendicular to this coast, and you have some of the most important really vineyards of Castiglione on those hills. For example, you have Bricoboschis. On the other hills, you have facing hills, you have Vignolo, Monprivato. Here you have Brie de Fiasque, and here you have Villero. So they are all perpendicular to the coast of Castiglione Falletto, where there is Rocche di Castiglione. And Castiglione Falletto as Serralunga has some of the smallest MGA. So it means that already in the past, because the MGA became official in 2010, but they were recognized already before. So probably in the past they were able to study more closely the characteristic of each vineyard in this territory. In fact, in Castiglione Falletto, we had an amazing, a great person who was Ferdinando Vignolo Lutati, who already in the early 1900s studied the soil and today MGA of the region, so giving characteristic, describing the characteristic of each area of Castiglione, considering the soil, the exposure. So, and Brie de Fiasque is a tiny area, but it's, as I was saying, quite central in the region. What is particular is that about the soil is that is half limestone and half sandstone. So there is a beautiful hydric balance in the soil because limestone hold a little bit more the humidity. The sands kind of drain the water. So it means that you never have not enough or too much water in the soil. So you have this good balance that give both intensity, deepness, the sand, minerality, but also you have the softer element, the balsamic components, the perfume that are, I think, more due to the limestone, to the marl that are typical of the Tortonian side, so La Morra, Verduno, Barolo, Novello. While the sandstone are the what typical of the Rocche di Castiglione, part of Monforte and Serralunga. So you have this great balance.
Do you have white truffles on your land?
I don't know. I don't go. I don't answer the truffle. In our garden, we were. I was during this past month that we had quite a lot of time because we were at home, of course, not moving and not only in the vineyard and home. So during the lockdown, I was hoeing also the garden where we have the flowers. We have a beautiful rose tree that is extremely old, where the I don't know how to say the hook of the tree is huge. And I was hoeing and I started to smell something and I was like, what is this? It smells like mushroom, and there was a black truffle underneath. And then I started to go more and more, and it was plenty of black truffle, but not white truffle. But they were delicious. I mean, I was surprised because I never actually see truffle coming out of the. I don't go, so I don't know.
Do you? Do you think that the perfect food pairing for Barolo is pasta with a little bit of butter and fresh white truffles and grated Parmigiano?
So first, I always suggest Barolo on Mondays. A lot of times people are think that Barolo needs only particular food, only particular occasion, celebration, which is true because it's an important wine to have on important moment, on a significant moment of our life. But it's also a beautiful wine that can be approached with very simple food. If you have a great piece of Parmesan, if you have some nice prosciutto crudo, if you have even just a beautiful olive oil on bread and a little bit of salt, and you match it with Barolo, it works absolutely fantastically. You don't have to make a special brasato sauce and cook it for 10 hours and make it difficult. I always recommend, actually, but that is my personal taste, to have extremely delicate sample food with Barolo. I like a beautiful grilled meat, no sauce, just maybe a little bit of rosemary, olive oil, salt, but just grilled with, for example, with Barolo, because Barolo is not. There is structure, but it's also the flavors are very delicate. So you don't want to have too much stuff in your food to cover the characteristic of the wine. So the most sample it is, the more I think matches well and the food respect the wine. So
I think Barolo is like the ultimate intellectual wine because it's relatively light in color, compared to a lot of wines, but it's not light in flavor, which, casually you think dark color, big flavor. This is the opposite of that with Barolo. It's really tannic, but it's not powerful. It's delicate. It's tannic and delicate at the same time. It's perfumed. It's beautiful. It's in the case of wines like yours, it's incredibly complex. So it's kind of a cerebral wine because it's counter to the obvious assumptions you make about wine looking at it and smelling it, because you look at it and it's not, black. The color's not black or purple, and then you smell it and it's got these glorious perfumes, and you think, wow, this is going to be, really, really feminine, and and then you taste it and you go, wow, this is something really. So that complexity is what to me makes Barolo special.
Point. Sometimes we say weightless power.
I'm sorry?
Sometimes we say weightless power.
Weightless power, yeah. I love that. Yeah.
And then also, I just wanted to comment on the white truffle thing. One of the simplest dishes, and it's a lunchtime dish in Piemonte, is fonduto. Mm-hmm. And fonduta, or is it fonduta or fonduto, Elisa?
Fonduta.
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 Yes. And it's the simplest dish, but they shave tons of white truffle on top of this melted cheese, and you just mop it up with bread. And the wine that everyone drinks with fonduta is Dolcetto. So it's a great contrast of one of the most magnificent ingredients with also one of the simplest wines, but you will never dismiss Dolcetto ever again as a simple wine when you have it with fonduta. And I'll let you comment on that, Elisa.
Oh, you said it perfectly. It's poetry what you said. Perfection. I think it's, yes. Yeah.
Years ago, I was at a restaurant. I haven't thought about this in a long time. It's a long time ago, but I remember it like it happened now. I was at a restaurant in the hills above Trieste at a restaurant called Suban, and everything there was cooked on an open hearth. But when we sat down, they put a whole white truffle about the size of my fist on the corner of the table. And every dish that was served, they shaved some of that truffle onto the dish. And then by the end of the meal, we'd eaten the whole entire white truffle. I wasn't the host. So I don't know what it cost, but the most memorable, I remember the dish, it's 25 years ago, I'm sure I remember the dish was crepes with fontina cheese cooked in the hearth. So kind of charred a little bit, you know, and then with fresh white truffles shaved on top with, and I wish I remembered the Barolo we drank with it, but it was just like, it's one of the most magical moments ever, you know. I mean, it was just incredible. And it was just so simple. It was butter, crepe, fontina, and white truffles with this amazing bottle of Barolo. It's unforgettable moment. So I always kind of ask this question. I think we might be approaching 20 of these Zoom tastings. They've been a big success for us. They've been a lot of fun and just an enormous thing for our business and for our friends and our customers. And I would say that this last hour and a half with you, Elisa, has been in, I don't know, 20 or 25 of these that we've done with some pretty well-known people. I mean, a lot of master sommeliers and winemakers and different people. This has been really, really special.
Grazie. For me, it was so enjoyable.
I mean, I can't, if your sister is actually the person who does the talking for your winery, I can't imagine what this would have been like, because it's been absolutely glorious spending this hour and a half with you. It's exactly what I hoped these things would be. You know, kind of open, just you being open to talk about your family and your wines and the history and the geography and the geology and the, you know, the weather and everything else. It's exactly what I envisioned when I started doing these, you know, 4 months ago. So thank you. It's been a privilege. So last question, and I always ask this question. I'm not asking you what's the greatest wine you've ever tasted, but what's your most memorable wine experience of your life?
Wine experience in terms of making
memorable, something you'll never forget, like my dish of fontina crepes with truffles and Barolo. Something.
I think yes, the most memorable experience I made was when I started to work in 2005, and it was my first time fermenting on my own. I mean, I asked my father to try to do something. I wanted to vinify small vineyard, whatever vineyard of ours, it didn't matter, but to have like 2, 3, 4 barrels to do on my own. To do my own in sense, I wanted to do manually the work on those little casks, because I was raised in a time when there is a lot of technology, and you know, in the past, if you had to do the punch down, you were doing manually. You didn't have any machine that was doing for you. And I wanted to start my wine experience starting from the bottom, from the more sample, and I was very even more stubborn, I think, than today when I started.
No, more feisty.
I wanted to do it
more feisty.
More feisty, maybe, yes. So I was discussing so much with my father. I wanted to do it in the way I wanted to do it, and I was, very stubborn. And so, and my father at a certain point got so upset and said, "You are on your own, and don't ask me anymore if you want to do it as you want to do it without listening to me. You take the responsibility, you move, you do it." I remember I was so afraid to do some mistake. And I remember, waking in the night and going in the cellar and trying to take off every little piece of stem that I could find. But it was a beautiful time when a beautiful experience that I made because it was the first time that I was doing vinification. It was my first step, and I wanted to celebrate it through making a little bit of production for which has never been bought. I mean, it has been bottled, the wine, but is not on the market. So, but if you come, I will be happy to taste it with you. So to make you taste
Was
the
it
result.
Was it Barolo?
Barolo, yes, was from Terlo vineyard, which is a vineyard that we rent that is not in our properties in Barolo. It was 2005. It was the last vineyard that we picked, and my father left me some grape to play with, and I made 4 barrels, and at the end I came out with 2 barrels of wine, because of course you have to take off all the grapes and the skins, then you have to tap the barrels over the aging of the wine. It was very hard when you work with such little quantity of juice. It's tough to find the right containers, barrels, and you have to use even large bottles sometimes, because when you rack, you have maybe 3 liter left, and you don't know where to put them. So it's much harder when you have small quantity. But it's a wine that when I drink today makes me also feel very happy, because there are good memories about that.
Oh, that sounds like a really, really good excuse to make a trip to Piemonte. Annette, what's your dog's name?
Oh.
What? Oh, you're muted. Why are you muted? Well,
that's Baldo. He just ran away. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I would really love to taste that wine. That would be special. So it seems like I need to make a trip if the world comes back to normal where I can. Thank you, Elisa. This has been just absolutely an amazing time.
Grazie.
And if you'd be willing, I'd love to make this an annual event.
Oh, with great pleasure and an immense honor, and it would be an immense honor for me and pleasure.
Okay, well, later today, you're going to get an invitation to a Zoom tasting in 2021.
Grazie. Grazie.
And we'll taste the 2016.
Fantastic.
That'll be fun.
And I want to thank a lot Annette for organizing this beautiful moment, and Mark, and I want to wish also all of your clients yes, the best wishes for a great continuation, for health and serenity, and really all the best.
Tell your sister and your father hello for us and how much we appreciate the brilliance of your wines. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Grazie. Thank you so much. A presto.
Presto, arrivederci.
Grazie, un abbraccio. Bye.
Bye. Bye.